Sabersim's player filters on step 1 are a really powerful tool to make large, sweeping changes to your player pool all at once. You can find this particular tool to the right of the step 1 review player pool header here next to the filter icon. When you click this, you are generally going to see for most sports our one default filter that we include across the board. And this filter typically says include players where my projection is greater than some number that we think is appropriate for that particular sport and slate type. In the case of NBA classic slates, it is typically 15. For NFL Showdowns, for example, it will be 0. And for NFL main slates, it will be about 3 points. It's just a baseline filter that we use to make sure that there are not very low projected players going into your lineups. You can use the new filter button here in the upper right to add a filter to your lineups that allows you to include or exclude players, games, or individual teams by virtually any piece of data that shows up on step 1. There are a lot of different ways to use this, but just for example, for something like an NBA Classic slate, you could say include players where minutes is greater than 20, for example. And when applied, that's going to remove all the players from your lineups that have a minutes projection of less than 20. Another possible example here would be to do something based on ownership, for example. You could click a new filter here, scroll down, and say exclude players where my ownership is greater than, let's say, 30%. Bulk removing all players from the pool that have an ownership projection of over 30%. Again, remember that these are making pretty sweeping changes to your player pool all at once. If you remove a player that is projected for over 30% owned in your lineups here on step 1, none of your lineups in your entire pool will have that player in them in step 3, which can be a good thing if that's what you are trying to do, but just remember that there's no way to get more exposure to that player after that build has run without going back to step 1 and removing the filters. A couple other things you can do here in this filters tab. You can save your filters, which will give you an option to reload if you wanted to use the same filters later. You could turn specific filters on or off. So for example, maybe you saved this particular filter set, but on this slate, you don't want to use the minutes filter. You can update your filters by individual positions. And you can also permanently delete a filter. Let's say you went in and put this ownership filter in and decided later on that you didn't want to use it ever again. You can click the trash can icon and delete it here. Hopefully this was a helpful introduction to the player filters function on Sabersim. As always, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out in the Runpuresports Discord or watch some of our other tutorials on Sabersim. Anyway, until then, thanks and good luck.